So we've got San Harper with us today from the Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. Have I got that right?
That's right. Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm tired, but I'm good, thank you. I've been busy. I've been traveling a lot today, and I've been fitting a few things in. So yeah, quite a little bit weary, but happy.
We'll see how we get on with this one then and see how it works out. But the mindfulness, it's something that kind of fascinates me how mindfulness can have such an impact on people. I know I've been following what you're up to, but what led you into the mindfulness? Was it something you'd done before driver training, or was it something you found later once you was qualified as an ADI?
Oh, much later. I mean, I've been an ADI. I can't believe it'll be 20 years next year. I can't actually believe that myself, to be honest. Um, but it was quite late in my life, maybe by some people's standards. I suppose it was about must be about 5 years ago now. Um, I was in my 40s, like a lot of people, particularly women, finding myself struggling with anxiety. So I'm very thankful I've not suffered with depression in my life. I'm very grateful for that. But I did struggle with having anxiety, and it was very physical. It would feel like somebody had reached into my chest and was literally kind of grabbing hold and twisting round. And I kind of lived with this weight, this kind of almost like having carrying a rock around in here. And I don't know, I just thought I just really kind of want to address this in some way and maybe find a different way to be with this. And my cousin's wife is a mindfulness teacher on a corporate level. So I've spoken to her a little bit about mindfulness. I kind of knew a little bit about what it was, but I started off with doing the 8 week MBSR, which is mindfulness based stress reduction, and that's an 8 week course. That's like they call it the gold standard. It's by John Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness to the West. He devised this course predominantly back in the day for people who were I think it was their cancer patients, but people in hospital, helping them to manage what they were going through. And it's quite a well known course now. So I did that, and it just I felt a shift. Things changed. And as I was talking to you briefly just now as well, in conjunction with that, I listened to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, who I've just been to see at the Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, and it was. I know it sounds like a cliche awakening. I guess a spiritual awakening of some description, certainly a shift. But the biggest thing for me is realizing that my thoughts aren't me. That's it, really. I am not my thoughts. And that just simple statement is sounds really basic, but recognizing that I can have thoughts. We're all kind of often consumed with thoughts, but right now, I'm in this room, I'm safe. Nothing, there's no dramas going on right now. So the dramas that are often that I'm experiencing are the ones in my head. They're thoughts about the past, they're concerns about the future, but they're not actually happening right now. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body and the ego, and he explains, it's a lot of it's mental projections, and learning to be in the now is hard. We're born with this innate ability to be present. When you connect with a baby, they look at you and they're very present. And animals are the same. Dogs. This is why we love dogs so much. Not so much cats. But cats are lovely, but they're a little they're present when they feel like being present. But dogs know they
Yep.
connect with you, because we spend most of our time on autopilot. As we get into adulthood, we lose that presence for whatever reason. And mindfulness and meditation, it's like taking your mind to the gym. It helps you to regain that. It helps you to regain that ability to become the impartial observer and step outside of yourself. So you're not just caught up and consumed with all the worries and anxieties and all the thoughts that we all experience. You have that, and it doesn't change anything. You've still got the same worries and concerns that you've always had. It doesn't magically fix or solve anything, but it certainly changes your relationship with it. How much, or how the level to which it affects you. is certainly altered. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it, really.
That's kind of fascinating. So you got into the mindfulness for your own anxiety, so it wasn't really based around anything other than trying to help yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
then I assume from there it's grown. But being able to use mindfulness to deal with the anxiety, how does that work?
Well, with my own practice, it's the gaps between meditation you start to notice the shift. Meditation in itself is not always pleasant because you're paying attention to things that aren't always pleasant. You know, you're trying to meditate, and your mind's racing around. You might feel fidgety. The meditation itself isn't always, with mindfulness meditation, it's not about attaining anything. It's not about attaining calm or peace or a different state of being. That's the first thing that people often misunderstand. But what starts to happen is the gaps between the meditation, your life between meditation starts to change, and it becomes a foundational capacity. So for me, it started to filter. They call it the golden thread with mindfulness because it filters through everything. And so naturally it filtered through into my work, and I started to integrate it naturally into my work and share it with my pupils. And after a little while, I remember thinking to myself, I really should be sharing this. You know, surely it can't just be me. And I had a focus group, actually. I got a focus group of ADIs together because I didn't want to assume that their challenges were the same as mine. They might have been, but there may be other things that were different. And it turns out, you know, we do share a lot of the same challenges, but they also highlighted things that I don't experience. But there's lots of different things that we experience. And I think, and I explain this to people on my course, mindfulness filters through us almost by osmosis, because the energy that we bring with us into the lesson is massive. So if I'm having a really stressful day, whether I'm aware of it or not, whether it's subliminal or whether I even know it, I bring that energy with me, and it manifests, it shows up, and it could be with me clenching my jaw, getting chronic neck and shoulder pain, which I used to get. So it shows up in a physical sense. It might show up with me getting a little bit exasperated with people, maybe a little bit judgmental, maybe a little bit less able to understand why they're doing what they're doing. It's certainly, I've got to say, mindfulness, compassion for me, it has to have a compassion. Mindfulness in and of itself is great. The thing is with mindfulness, it teaches you to pay attention. It's like, well, then what? Now, okay, now I'm paying attention, but it's pretty bad. Now what am I going to do now? And the compassion part is when we learn to support ourselves. We learn to feel more resilient and more resourced, because you can't give from an empty cup. So you might know, you can walk and talk the talk. You might know all the facts about being a driving instructor. You might have a lot of knowledge, but you've got to be able to, as a foundational capacity, you've got to know how to support yourself. And that was huge for me. And I'm a much more of a compassionate instructor now, much more compassionate since I've discovered mindfulness. Yeah. I can be a bit of a tangent woman sometimes. Hopefully, I didn't go off on too much of a tangent, but
No, it's great because that was where I was going to ask about it, how it can affect your lessons, because you said you can't give from an empty cup. And there are days as instructors, I'm sure we all have bad days, or we just have a run of meeting not great people on the road where you're getting beeped at. You've got a bunch of new starters and people just are impatient. That's where I think the mindfulness for me, I mean, I've not really studied it, but the awareness, I'm no longer kind of getting frustrated. I spoke to, who was it? I think it was Terry on the episode I done with him about it. And we don't know what that other person's gone through. So we can only deal with and focus on ourselves and the student that we need to look after and not worry about everyone else. We need to be aware of it. So there's been a lot of things that have helped me as an instructor. So hearing the direction that that went, then my next question was, how do you use it to help your students? Because I'm getting a lot of students that come through that suffer with nerves, anxiety, um, and I'm struggling with how much I can offer
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
because I
So
don't feel I'm qualified, but I think there needs to be a crossover somewhere. I think
I've come to my course. Yeah.
I plan to most certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's very practical tools. I mean, first and foremost, I believe that to integrate mindfulness into our work, to bring a mindfulness based um, aspect, we have to practice mindfulness to some extent, and everyone's practice is going to be different. Mine might be different to the next person, but we have to have some sort of a practice. That's my first thing, because there's very practical elements that we can take from that. The first, as a practical element, would be breath awareness. So, the way we breathe affects our nervous system. So, if we breath hold and breathe really fast, it basically feeds back to our nervous system. Yeah, be afraid. Carry on being afraid. Yeah, carry on. Keep being afraid. But what we need to do is we can change the way that we breathe. So we breathe into the abdomen long and slow, and we breathe out nice and slowly. What that also does is it changes the way our body absorbs oxygen and the way that we release carbon dioxide. So it if we pay attention to how we breathe, and we breathe in this manner, in this nice controlled manner, and not from the parts of the chest, long term, the health benefits are huge, because if we breathe in a fast, shallow way, our blood becomes more acidic, and we want it to be more alkaline, because if it's more acidic, we're more prone to inflammation. So the way we breathe, first of all, is huge. So that's the first thing. Very simple, simple as breathing. Say to somebody, "Are you breathing?" Oh, of course I am. I wouldn't be alive if I wasn't breathing. But the way we breathe has a big impact. So being able to sort of impart that knowledge to pupils, obviously with exploring contraindications, because breath awareness for some people isn't appropriate. So that's a conversation to be had. Also, when you study mindfulness, you start to learn about how the parts of the mind works, and also the biochemistry, and how that we're all driven by the ego. And being able to share, just from a scientific point of view, like you just said about other people on the road, the person behind us, being able to help other people understand the three emotional cycles, because we all operate from three emotional cycles. So there's some really practical things that we can share with pupils about how they're processing and how they're relating to the situation, and why it is how it is, like why other people are behaving how they're behaving. So it almost takes the personal, it makes it less, it makes it impersonal. It is no longer personal. We get upset because we make it about us. The ego makes it all about us. They're beeping at me because because I'm a learner, and we take it very personally. But the reality is that person's, like you said, has got something going on for them. It's got absolutely nothing to do with us. We're just a body in a metal box that just happens to be in the way. So I think being able to share this sort of knowledge with pupils, what that other person's experiencing on a biochemical level, what we're experiencing on a biochemical level, what happens with fight, flight, and freeze, what's involved with that, where it comes from, it's a survival mechanism. Just being able to share this knowledge with people helps them to make sense of it all a little bit more, and maybe not be quite so triggered by the behavior of the people, understanding themselves a bit more. And then the compassion part is really because people are so hard on themselves sometimes. So we can teach people to use different techniques to be kinder to themselves. And when you speak kindly to yourself, you trigger things such as oxytocin, serotonin, the kind of feel good hormones. But it's not something you can just flick a switch and go, yeah, got that, tick, sorted. It's a process. And for some people, speaking kindly or showing them kindness to themselves is very, very difficult, particularly if we've got a lot of negative self-talk. Speaking kindly to yourself can feel cringe, quite frankly. It can feel really awkward. But it takes a bit of time to sort of get used to it. And then you start to sort of, I suppose it just shifts your perspective on things, really.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, in a big way.
it's it's fascinating. The breathing really interests me. And I'd not really, I'm aware of it, but I didn't see the link with that and mindfulness massively. But when you started talking about the breath, what's the book? James Nestor, the is it the Forgotten Art of Breathing?
I don't know that one.
Um, he done massive studies into the breathing and the effect of it and how we breathe and how a lot of people these days are breathing incorrectly
Yeah,
and it takes time and practice to get back to it. So breathing is something that I'm aware of with my students because you see them when they're in the stress, it's
yeah, yeah,
hold the breath and then the build up and then the stress because you've got the CO2 building up in your lungs and we need to breathe out. But I'd not seen the link, or at least I'd not put it all together with the mindfulness. But the way we talk to ourselves is I try to change that in the lessons. I've had some students, I hate this roundabout, I hate this set of traffic lights. So I kind of ban negative words. I'm like, right, no, we have to say, whether we believe it or not, I can do this. Even if you don't believe it, say it.
I
Um,
yeah, I like making them laugh as well. And I'll say, right, we've got to say, I love roundabouts, or I love this round, and they laugh, and then they come around again. Oh, I love this roundabout. That could be quite funny. Yeah, it's making it fun too, because a lot of people got this misconception that mindfulness is all a bit weirdy beardy. You've got to be a bit of a hippie. It's absolute rubbish, actually, because it's becoming more and more popular with regards to in the field of sports. There's a lot of mindfulness being used now to help with performance in sports in that kind of field, and in so many different fields actually, because a lot of it is really mindset, but it can be fun. It doesn't have to be this kind of serious subject. I mean, the only thing I suppose the difference for me and between me and them, my pupils, is that I have a practice of meditation. I meditate. I learn about mindfulness. I have my own practice, and they don't. Having said that, though, I have had pupils who've done courses with me, and I have had pupils who've asked me for meditations, and I've sent them meditation, or they've asked me for apps, and I've recommended different apps so they can try, and see how they find developing their own meditation practice.
so what's been a difference that you've noticed in your lessons? Because you spent a few years without mindfulness as a driving instructor and then the last 5 years with mindfulness. What have been some of the biggest benefits that you've seen as an instructor for yourself?
So I always suffered with chronic pain, unbearable in my shoulders up here, terrible. I come home from work and I'd be, oh, I say to my husband, can you rub my shoulders? I don't have that now. And the reason I had it is because I was holding tension in my shoulders without realizing it. So now I feel tension starting, and I'm very much aware of how I'm breathing. So that's the first thing. Supporting myself is the first thing. Compassion to myself. And I know it all sounds about me, it sounds like it's all about me, but I'm facilitating this learning environment. What I bring is everything, really. So if I'm calm and I'm comfortable, I can give my all, you know. But if I'm so struggling because I'm in pain, I'm tired, I'm narky, I'm not going to give my best version of myself, you know. So that the pain is the first thing. Compassion for myself and for them. So, for example, if I've had a really busy day or something's been challenging, to have managing their expectations of me, and it could involve me calling them and saying, "Do you know what? I've had a really stressful day. I'm not feeling great. I've got a headache coming now. Would it be okay if we reschedule? How would that work for you?" And they're pretty good. I mean, they all say, yeah, yeah, I'm sure we can work something out, because I know if I show up, I'm not going to be showing up. I might be there in person, but I might not be showing up mentally. So compassion for myself um, is another one. Compassion for them. So if they are, sometimes just diary management, sometimes they can be a bit flaky. People, managing relationships with other people, learning about their what's going on for them and not taking it personally. If people behave in a certain way before, I might get upset. I may take it personally. I might play back the story in my head over and over again. So why have they cancelled? Maybe they think I'm a rubbish instructor. What have I done to upset them? You know? So I think I've been able to bring my rational mind, bring my new brain into the equation, and not my monkey mind, the old brain, because this is another thing. There's two parts of the brain, the old part, the new part. Be able to rationalize things and be able to have emotional intelligence about things and understand that there's usually stuff going on for them. And it's like I say, it's made me much more compassionate, even with the crazy things people do on the road. I'm not saying I'm not triggered. I still go, oh, blimey, what the hell, what they thinking. But it certainly doesn't then escalate into me then coming home and relaying the story to my husband and then going on Facebook and typing up a big story on Facebook and then complaining to somebody else about it. It's kind of like that happened. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder what's going on for them. Perhaps I'm on a bad day. Who knows? It's none of my business. Breathe. All I need to do now, as Terry said, what can I do about this? Well, actually nothing, because I can't control the other people. All I can do is support myself. So I might say to my people, let's just have a moment, shall we? Let's just pull over. We get out of the car quite often. I invite people to get out of the car if they want to, and quite a lot of them like to. Sometimes we have a stretch.
I saw that on one of your social
Yeah,
medias recently, getting
yeah.
out
I've
having a
got a few
stretch.
people that really like to do that. If it's a particularly long lesson, not normally in an hour, but if it's 2 hours or an hour and a half, they often will say it'd be really good to get out and have a stretch. And I think just being mindful as to where they're at, just checking in with them. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling okay? Do you need to take a moment? Did that, that's that incident that just happened. What are your thoughts about that? And helping them just to notice where they're at. Because often we get caught up in this fight, flight, freeze, or, we start to, the anxiety starts to build. We don't, because we're on autopilot, we don't even notice it's happening. So being mindful of watching them and checking in with where they're at, because you can't learn if you're in a fight flight freeze uh, fear response. That's not conducive to learning to drive.
No, and that's something I'm more conscious of now when I ask them how was that. And there are some times when maybe they can't recall everything. We just got across the situation, and that's where I'm like, okay, we need to take this back a little bit because there's too much stress leading up to it. And like I say, I've not studied it yet, but that's normally my indicator. If we can't recall what's going on, we need to go back a level, just come at it from a different angle, see what we can do. Um, because we're not designed to be traveling at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, whatever speed it is, depending on whether you're in Wales or not. But we're not designed to be doing that. So I expect the fight, flight, or freeze response is when you're new to driving is probably firing quite a lot, and we need to figure out how to deal with it. But it's a challenge when, as someone else mentioned on the podcast, when you're sat in a classroom that's moving at these speeds, being able to watch the road, watch your student, watch the person that's doing something crazy next to you, it all can get a little bit much at times as an instructor trying to keep everyone safe.
I definitely think the more in tune we are with us, it has to start with us. This is what I mean. It's all well and good about learning about this stuff on a cognitive level, like I understand it. But I believe we have to practice it to some degree, because if I'm not aware of myself, how can I be aware of them? And it's just picking up on the subtleties of where, if they're holding tension, just noticing kind of how they're communicating, because they zone out, don't they? And I remember when I was, years ago as an instructor, I would get a little frustrated because I'd go over something with somebody 100 times. We'd come around again and it'd be like they'd never done it before. And I'd be thinking, geez, what is wrong with this person? We've been over this. And I almost want to be like frustrated by it. But it's only since I've learned that when you're in that fear response, fight, flight, freeze, well, if you're in freeze, your brain is literally going offline. There's no, you're just like, everything's just locking, you're rabbit in the headlights, basically. There's nothing going on. It's like the lights are on and nobody's home. So there's a bus coming towards you, the gap's that big, and they keep on going. And you're thinking, what is wrong with, well, it's because they're not in the right state of mind. And so it's when they're starting, when that when that sort of thing starts to happen, we need to, no amount of talking and saying, come on, you need to be paying more attention. That's not going to work. We need to be saying, okay, let's just take a moment. I think we just need to maybe practice our focused awareness, how we feel. Let's just notice, are we holding tension in the body? How are we breathing? Often I'll say to them, are you breathing? They say, oh, I was holding my breath. I'm so bad. I'm always holding my breath. And I'm always reminding them not to hold their breath because it just perpetuates. And we can only support them to a certain degree, and some are more engaged with that invitation because it is always an invitation, than others. But certainly the ones that do engage with it, it is definitely of benefit. And like I say, it's just through my own practice I'm able to. I just basically work with them as I work with myself. So the things that I find difficult and challenging, I share my experiences. So I'm a human being as well, and being able to share my own weaknesses and vulnerabilities with them. I think that helps them to sort of feel, they can feel safe with exploring this kind of idea of a mindfulness based approach, I think, to their driving.
Yeah, there's certainly that being open with your students. I try to be as much as I can because they feel like we're judging them. I find at times people seem to come out on driving lessons and want to drive at test standard. We're on lesson 5. Let's relax, chill. We're here to learn. Let's focus on the things we need to develop rather than trying to drive perfectly. And I'll tell them about my driving mistakes that I make. I mean, I'm not going to say on here I make loads, but none of us are perfect. So there's a lot of benefit to be had for yourself and the students. Have you changed diary management to allow yourself time now? I know a lot of people seem to work long hours. With the mindfulness and your more awareness now, have you changed much of how you manage your diary, your working routine?
Yeah, I'm although it has crept up a bit, and I need to kind of, I have actually, because I've swapped over to automatic recently, and I've got a bit too much work, and I've started to actually talk to some of my manual students, and they're going to go to other instructors. I found them other instructors because I was finding that I was working too many hours, because I tried to pare back my diary a little bit and keep my Fridays free, of course. And I've been pretty good actually up until quite recently. So I think having a decent gap between lessons is the first thing. Always having a lunch break, coming home for my lunch is the second thing. Factoring in my drain, but basically we call it drainers and sustainers. So in life, we have drainers and we have sustainers. So things that drain us and things that sustain us. So I know what sustains me. So I've been for a swim tonight, as you know, even though I've driven back from London and I'm tired. I got the offer. Somebody said, do you want to come for a swim? And I was a bit and ahhed. And I thought, no, because I know it sustains me. So it's being aware of what sustains you and making sure that you factor it into your life, I think. Because I think doing nothing as well is very, very underrated. People think unless they're doing something, if they're unless they're being productive, it's of no value. But I actually think taking time to just slow down and just be, as Eckhart Tolle said last night, even with meditation, we even can get to make that about doing. I must do my meditation, but actually just allowing time just to sit without scrolling on the phone. So between lessons, and just sit and just notice the sky, notice the sound of the birds, notice the colours around, and just be with the now. That is huge, I think.
That's something I need to do more of. It's something I do occasionally, but not I've not done enough. There are some gaps between lessons where I have kind of 10, 15 minutes. And with some students, I know if I get there 10, 15 minutes early, they come out and start the lesson,
I always park
which
around the
is
corner.
so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
I stop short, switch the car off, open the windows, and just have 5 minutes
yeah.
sat doing nothing. And it's being conscious about that because I think I subconsciously grab my phone and check it. I don't even know what I'm checking. I'm just picking it up, having a look. There's nothing, there's no reason to check it. So I now have to be a little more conscious about just stay off the phone, have just 5 minutes to rest before I get to the next one. But diary management is another thing I'm really trying to figure out at the minute because we want to help people and you get the messages, I've got this test coming up in a few weeks, no one can fit me in, or you've got a student that wants extra lessons, or they can't do their normal slot and now they can only do evenings. And before you know it, you're back to working all hours. Diary management is definitely something I need to be more aware of and making time. I'd not thought of the making sure I get home. I know we just eat on the road, but there's probably something to be said for taking a break for an hour and getting away from the car and
You
having
know,
something
one
to eat.
one of my instructors that did one of my courses said one of his things that he really enjoys every day is to eat his lunch mindfully. So he goes home and he says, and I sit and I just eat my lunch. He said, I don't scroll on the phone. I don't check anything. I don't watch TV. I just eat my lunch. I'm just with, I'm present and I eat my lunch. And he said, and he really enjoys it. And that's something he does for himself. I think it's almost becoming our own best friend and just being doing things for ourselves that is we know is a benefit. So it might be right. I'm going to go home, or I'm going to do something that I love that suits me, and that's going to look different for all of us, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, definitely. For me, my time was until the weather started to turn. I'd take the kids fishing. That was something that we used to do. And I have a second phone now. It was a work phone, but now it's a phone that only my partner's got the number to. So I don't take my work phone. I don't take any social media. It's just bog standard. I'm offline. No one can get hold of me for the next few hours because the phone never stops. So you can't get away from work and then you've got the kids. So it's making those steps. And I think I'm being aware of how much you give into everything else
Yeah.
and trying to buy back time for yourself, isn't it?
I definitely think, in my experience, when I was newly qualified, I try be all things to all people, and I hear what you're saying. I would want to get back to people straight away. I'd want to accommodate people. I'd want to, I just want to do the right thing, and just you do find that you say you can feel like you're on a treadmill, and I definitely think it's just about find out what works for you, and try to have boundaries. I guess set boundaries in place as to what works, because the thing is, if we don't, we reach a point where we're approaching burnout, and then we get sick and we get cranky, and then we're not being the best versions of ourselves anyway. We're not bringing the best that we could bring anyway. So by actually supporting ourselves, we're actually making it better for them in the long term anyway, aren't we? They just don't
Yes,
know it.
it's a challenge, isn't it? Especially
Yeah.
when you're self-employed. And you, I mean, I don't know what it's like for you, but my diary has its ups and its downs. And when you're on a quiet couple of weeks that isn't intentional, and then you fill everything, and then you've got a few weeks of now
Yeah.
non-stop work. So it's a challenge to find that balance. And I've not been doing it. I've been qualified 2 years, full time now, I think about 10 months. So trying to find the balance of work, time for yourself, and then everything else in life as well. Family, your hobbies, your other interests. So the mindfulness is something I want to and I will be studying more. So with that, what courses have you got coming up for the mindfulness, Ivor? Is it mindfulness in general? Is it for driving instructors? What are your courses based
Well,
around?
we've got one starting this month. There's one starting on the 26th. I've got some driving instructors and civvies, so just just anybody really. This isn't specifically for driving instructors, but some of my instructors who've done the other course are coming to do this because it's whetted their appetite, I guess. And I'm doing the 8-week mindfulness based stress reduction, and I'm co-hosting that with another teacher, a lady who was trained with the same organisation that I've trained with. She's based in Scotland, actually. It's wonders of Zoom. That starts on the 26th of October, and that's the course that I did. That's the first course that I did, the 8-week mindfulness based stress reduction. We are doing it on a tiered payment system as well because we want to make it accessible to anybody. So there's a fee, but it obviously depending on people's financial situation. It's not all about making. Certainly, you never get rich from being a mindfulness teacher. It's about trying to make it accessible for the people that need it. So there are spaces available for that if anybody wants to come or anybody wants to get in touch with me about that. I'm currently running mindfulness and compassion for driver and rider trainers at the moment, and this will be the last one of the year, and then we'll start again next year. So anybody's welcome to get in touch with me to find out. I can let them know when the next one is, and that's for anybody actually road safety advocates, because we have had people on the course who aren't driving instructors but who work in the industry. They've been all over the world actually, which is quite amazing. We've got a lady at the moment who's in Greece. We've had a lady from the States and a guy that was getting up at 3:30 in the morning in Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, it really is wow. Yeah, really amazing.
International course.
Yeah, yeah.
And how long does that course run for then? I've seen the post about, I think I've got the info for that one that's running now. But when it starts again in the new year, how long does that one go for? That's a couple of
That's
evenings, isn't it?
yeah, it's a six weeks and it's an hour and a half session. I usually do them on a Wednesday night, for not any reason, it's just become a habit really. So it usually be on a Wednesday. Yeah, and that goes for 6 weeks. That offers there's like 80 slides that come with it, 6 meditations. We have a WhatsApp group where people can, find support throughout the course in any way that they wish. And then after we finish the course, people are then invited to join the main WhatsApp group. There's about 45 instructors in the main WhatsApp group, and it's just a really nice space. We just share bits and bobs really about mindfulness and personal growth. People are doing all kinds of things actually. People getting interested in doing things like aromatherapy, Reiki. I don't know much about those things myself, but there's people that explore all kinds of things to help to support themselves and their students. That's been
Yeah, I
great.
expect there's a lot of different avenues you can then pursue it once you start making the
Yeah,
connections
I
through the
definitely
courses.
think. Yeah, I definitely think mindfulness almost opens a new doorway for a lot of people. It opens a doorway to different things that maybe people hadn't maybe explored before because it definitely does shifts perspective, it shifts something. And then you start, I guess if it does whet your appetite, you start to become interested in lots of other different ways too. Because I guess mindfulness is just it underpins a lot of this stuff, awareness of your reality. But there's lots of things that you can do, I guess, to bring compassion to yourself, which is supporting yourself in there's many different things you can do, isn't there? Yeah.
I think it makes you question a lot of things as well, doesn't it? Once you start
It does.
looking into it, it makes you question, like I was saying about the breathing and the breath work. I was until recently quite big into sport and competing. And the breath work, the changes it made to my fitness level were ridiculous.
Wow.
And then it starts you on. different paths, and then you end up down rabbit holes. I find it fascinating. But yeah, I expect with the mindfulness, it's going to branch off into all different things as well. So if people want more information about you, the courses, and everything else, where's the best place to for people to go and find it?
So the website is guildmdt.com, and there'll be things posted on there. I've been thinking about changing my website because I do also have Cotswold Mindfulness. So I don't just teach driving instructors. So I'm thinking of amalgamating the two. But you can find me guildmdt.com. I'm on Facebook, Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm on a few other things. I can't lose track. It gets too much, doesn't it? But yeah, people can just WhatsApp me, send me a text, yeah, send me a message. I think there's a newsletter on the website people can sign up for if they want information. Yeah, and I sort of pop up here and there. I'll be at the expo at the weekend. You're going to be there, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to
Yeah,
the
nice.
expo. Yes.
Yeah, it'd be nice to meet you in the flesh. Yeah, so yeah, I'll be there. So anybody can come and ambush me and ask any questions.
It'll be good. There's a lot of people I've spoke to now that I would never have known that we can meet up, we can have a drink. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that at the expo, seeing what's going on. And with your websites and socials, we'll put them all in the description so people can find you if they want some more information. Um, I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's fascinating. I can't wait to get on one of your courses and learn more about it and put it into like conscious practice at the minute, just from the books that I'm reading. Like you said, I think I'm getting the understanding, but finding a way that it works for me and how then I can use it in the lessons is the next step. And that's where I'm hoping that your course and linking it all together will
Yeah.
allow me to deliver better, more mindful driving lessons.
Yeah. I think this is it. I think this is the hard thing for some people, I think, is when we do CPDs and ADI, we go and learn stuff. You know, we learn and we go, yeah, tick, 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 yeah, got that, got that, got that. Mindfulness is a practice. And that's the hard thing for a lot of people to understand. You either do it or you don't. You either practice mindfulness or you don't practice it. And you can only really integrate it into your life and your work if you practice it. And it's definitely worth the investment because it is an investment, but you have to, I guess it's just a way of being. You just, it just becomes part of who you are. I couldn't not be mindful now because that's just like I say, the golden thread, you know. But the level of anybody's practice is going to vary from it. You know, there's no right or wrong way, and it might be for some people their practice might just be between lessons, sitting and just being for a couple of minutes. You know,
Hiding around the corner, hoping they don't see you.
hiding around the corner. Yeah, always hiding around the corner. Yeah, you know, it could be, but just taking time out just to drop into the present moment, drop into the now, be in the now, just to be in the now, not in the head, not in the past, not in the future, just to be now. Because actually, the now is pretty good. You know, even if our life situation is difficult, I could have a whole load of stuff going on in my life. But the actual reality of the fact is, I'm sat here now, I'm warm, I'm safe, everything's okay right now. And it's being able to occupy that space on a more regular basis. Doesn't make all the difficult times go away, but it just helps you to feel a bit more resourced and resilient to enable you to feel a bit better equipped to deal with those challenges, I think.
Definitely. And yeah, taking that time for yourself is it's important. I expect the health benefits are massive because you're no longer carrying the stress that you was before
Well,
mindfulness.
I've got to say, it's not a magic bullet. I still get stressed, you know. I still have moments when I'm not mindful, you know. I still have days where I'll react to things. But the difference now is I don't fall down that rabbit hole. You know, I don't kind of it doesn't escalate to the I used to have I could have had a degree in rumination. rumination and I were, mulling, chewing over the story, going over and over the story, ruminating on everything. So I still get stressed, I still have anxiety, I still have things that happen, but I recognize what's happening now. And I've got tools now, compassion, and things that practices that I do, sustainers that I maintain in my life that help me to just, it's about finding balance, isn't it? It goes like that. There's things that happen and it's tough and it weighs you down and then you kind of bring it back up again. It's just keeping that your equilibrium, just keeping that in check so it doesn't all start to kind of go off the scale too much. Yeah, it's not a magic fix.
Certainly.
Hmm.
It's been fascinating. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, especially after the couple of days that you've had traveling and staying busy. I appreciate you taking the time. I will get your information put in the description. And if anyone wants any more info, they can reach out to you. But Sam, thank you very much. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's been great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on the show.